What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about three of the safest running backs that you guys can be looking to target in your fantasy football drafts. These are going to be guys going outside the top 10 running backs in terms of ADP. If you're picking like a mid to high end RB1, you want them to be pretty reliable. And I think you could make the argument that safe running backs don't exist just based on the injury risk. And you might be right, but I do think some running backs are definitely just going to be safer picks than others based on their injury history, also factoring age, things like that. So let's dive right into the video. And the first safe running back I'm going to be talking about here is Isaiah Pacheco. He's currently being drafted as the running back 11. And if you told me a year ago that I'd be talking about Isaiah Pacheco as like a safe running back option heading into 2024, I would have told you were crazy. He was not someone I was super high on last year. Typically, like 7th round draft picks, especially running backs, really have like no security in the NFL. Even if they perform well, teams are still willing to go out and replace them. But Pacheco here is coming off a running back 14 season in points per game, and the Chiefs have done literally nothing to bring in competition around him. So they used him pretty heavily last year. You have CEH, who's lined up as like the RB2, and Isaiah Pacheco has like clearly beaten him out at this point. So it does seem like the Chiefs are committing to using him as their running back one moving forward. Through 2 seasons, he's been very efficient on the ground. He's been at 0.45 rushing yards over expected per attempt in both seasons, which is a really solid number. He also saw a pretty strong uptick in receiving usage last year. He was 22nd in targets and receiving yards, 18th in receptions, which like isn't crazy, right? He's not breaking fantasy with that type of receiving workload, but it's much better than the 14 total targets he had his rookie year. Bumped that up to 49 last year. And then he also had the 8th highest opportunity share amongst all running backs. So he's getting a really solid piece of this backfield, getting a solid amount of opportunities on a game-to-game basis. And then when we look at this Chiefs offense this season, I am expecting a pretty solid bounce back for them. They were pretty close to average last year offensively. They were 14th in points per game. They had been top 6 in points per game in every other year where Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback. So they've upgraded their weapons. I think there's going to be more touchdown upside here for Isaiah Pacheco. So I think he just checks, pretty much all the boxes you'd be looking for in a safe running back. He's been fairly healthy. He's young, athletic, right? He's not getting up there in age, hasn't handled an insane workload in his NFL career. He's performed well at the NFL level, so you don't think he's going to get replaced. He has little to no competition. He's going to be in a very good offense. Overall, seems like a pretty safe pick to me as like a back-end RB1. Now, my next safe running back is going to be James Cook, and he's currently being drafted as the running back 15, and he's another guy that took a pretty solid jump in usage from year 1 to year 2. Rushed for over 1,100 yards, was 4th in rushing yards last year, had 445 receiving yards, that was 8th amongst running backs, averaged 13.9 carries and 3.2 targets per game. And then he was also just very efficient with those opportunities. Just like Isaiah Pacheco, he was at 0.45 rushing yards over expected per attempt. He was 2nd in yards per reception. He was 6th in yards per out run, and then 5th in yards per touch. And he finished as the running back 19 in points per game and still left some touchdowns out there on the field due to drops. I think he had like 5 or 6 drops on the season, and it was like every single one of those drops could have potentially been a touchdown. So I guess that's somewhat concerning, right? That he's like missing out on big plays, but he's a solid pass catcher. I feel like that's going to correct in the right direction moving forward. So it could have even been a, much larger year than what he actually delivered last year. And then similar to Isaiah Pacheco, there really has not been much competition added. Even though the Bills, have kind of shown they don't want James Cook to be like this huge 3-down workhorse. They don't want to give him an insane workload. They only added Ray Davis, who was like a day 3 pick. So maybe Ray Davis comes in, gets some of the early down work, maybe works in on like the goal line in the red zone. But I think we were already expecting someone to do that. Like that wasn't going to be James Cook's role, being an early down grinder. They're not really going to use him on the goal line, so I'm not super scared off by them bringing in Ray Davis. And so I just think there's no reason to believe he's going to lose any of his 2023 workload. I feel like he has an opportunity to improve on it a little bit. Maybe he gets a little bit luckier in the touchdown department, but he was the running back 19 last year in his first season, getting like a real role in an offense. Even if he, improves just a little bit, he's going to pay off here at this running back 15 price. Limited injury history at the NFL level, young player, good athlete. Checks a lot of the boxes here for a safe running back. And then my final safe running back, going a little bit more on the veteran side, it's going to be David Montgomery. He's currently being drafted as the running back 19, and barring an injury to Jahmyr Gibbs, it is tough to see much upside for David Montgomery. but that definitely doesn't mean he can't be a safe option because we know he's going to have a very solid role within this offense. Last year, David Montgomery had a 54% opportunity share. I'm actually expecting that to go down this season. I don't think he's going to hold on to that. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take over a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie this year. Just heading into year 2, he performed so well last year. I do think he's going to improve on his workload. But I mean, looking back at last season, David Montgomery was still averaging 17.4 opportunities a game. He was at over 15 carries a game, 1.7 targets. So that was a pretty solid workload. If that falls off a little bit, like that's not the end of the world. He's going to be playing on a good offense with a really strong offensive line. He's going to take probably the majority of the goal line opportunities. Even though Jahmyr Gibbs filtered in on the goal line last year, Montgomery's the bigger running back. They clearly like getting him in there, for those touchdown opportunities. And with that goal line work is going to have a lot of touchdown upside. Despite only playing 14 games last year and having the 28th highest opportunity share, David Montgomery was 5th in red zone touches and 4th in touchdowns. So just playing on this offense within this system, he is definitely going to find his way into the end zone. He was the running back 15 in points per game last season at 14.8. We could see those numbers dip a little bit, and he'd still work out at his current ADP. I do think drafting David Montgomery is like the running back 19. You're losing out on some upside, right? You could take a swing on like a Ramondre Stevenson, a Zamir White, someone who could potentially be like the lead workhorse back for their offense. So that's what you're passing up on here, but you're getting the security of having a proven running back, someone who's in a good offense. Even if they're not taking a massive chunk of the offense, they're going to have a fairly established role. They're going to be able to give you like weekly back-end running back 2 production. And if that's what you want, at this ADP, I do think the security's there. He's 27 years old. He's been very healthy throughout his career. He's missed 9 total games in 5 seasons, which for a running back is pretty insane, especially a running back who, was handling pretty large workloads earlier in his career with the Bears. So he's been very healthy. Even though, it seems like he's been in the NFL for a while, only 27 years old, I do think he's a nice safe option as like a mid-tier RB2. So those are going to be 3 of the safest running backs, at least in my opinion this season. Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, David Montgomery. Each one of these guys is a little bit different, but I think they all, kind of come together to be pretty reliable options this season. Don't expect them to like tank below where you're actually drafting them, obviously barring some sort of injury. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you missed my safest wide receivers video, go check that out if you are interested. But thank you again for stopping by. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.